My thoughts on drugs are, I have a lot of thoughts on drugs actually. Drugs impede the growth of our young people. They affect more than just the person that's using drugs. I find them to be dangerous each year. There's new drugs that come out. They have deadly consequences. And overall, I think drugs are really
They're bad for you. They can affect you in many different ways, and they can hurt your mindset and make you depressed and mentally ill and very sad. That's my thoughts.
They help save lives, so they're good drugs, right? They're prescribed. Those drugs will help people and save people's lives. Drugs that are out on the streets can affect people. They can affect their sound mind. They can affect their behavior. They can even cause people to die. So I would say don't do drugs. Those drugs out there that kill.
Drugs are very bad, and you should never do them under any circumstances.
Drugs can interfere with your education. You know, they mess with your brain, especially as, you know, your adolescence. And plus they can get you into trouble, meaning like you can get arrested for being in possession, for selling, for using. And like right now we're kind of going through an opioid crisis with like fentanyl being out there. So there's just a lot of drugs that are, you know, being laced with things, especially with fentanyl. Fentanyl is deadly. So there are some really serious consequences, death, including being part of that.
My thoughts on drugs are that they ruin your life, as well as whoever is taking them. It ruins the people who surround them because it affects their mental health as well as their physical health. And yeah, it just affects not just you, but the people who you love and your family and your friends.
Well, I think there's like prescription drugs, the drugs that your doctor prescribes. You know, they are necessary if your doctor is prescribing those drugs because maybe you have a specific condition. But there's also a part of it where they can be misused as well. So we have to just be very careful that we are taking the recommendations of the doctor. As far as illegal drugs, you know, they are illegal for a reason. And so you also have to be really careful. There has been a lot of, just in the media and in the news, like counterfeit drugs. So a lot of like the teens are overdosing because they're thinking they're taking a specific drug and it's a counterfeit and they are dying. I can relate because my sister-in-law, her nephew, her sister's son passed away, I think it was in 2020, and he took a counterfeit fentanyl, I think that's how you pronounce it, but counterfeit drug, and he passed away, and he was a junior in high school in the basketball team. So he was here one day and passed away, you know, and it was very shocking to me and also to everyone who knew him. So, you know, teens and everybody that is encountering these counterfeit drugs need to be super careful of what you're taking.
Well, unfortunately, drugs do a lot of damage. I've seen it throughout my life. A lot of my loved ones have gotten involved with drugs, and it has not gone well for them. A lot of people that get involved with drugs either end up dead, end up in jail, or end up getting other people hooked on drugs. And it's very unfortunate because I have not seen one good thing come out of people using drugs.
Well, drugs, they're bad. You can work hard all your life and drugs can just take it all away in an instant.
My thoughts on drugs are that they have negatively affected humankind since the beginning. It can distort your mind. It can distort the way you think, specifically the way you act.
Okay. The second question is, what are your personal experiences with drugs and how has it affected yourself or others?
My personal experience with drugs is that I have suffered from resisting use. I'll admit that it's difficult to not want to give in, especially when things are tough. Might make it seem like life is easier when it really just kills you in the end.
You don't want to say anything about like personal experiences with people you know? Like, how does it affect like the people you know personally?
Personally, I've seen families driven apart. I've seen several people go to jail simply because they go to extreme measures to obtain these drugs. And from it just results in chaos.
So medically, I feel like I support medical drugs and just to improve the quality of life. Socially, I just seen so much like how it affects people and how it changes their lives. So socially, I'm against social.
I believe that there's good drugs and bad drugs. So we need to educate ourselves on the difference so that, we're able to support and help where the help is needed. In terms of the bad drugs, you have to stay away from those type of drugs. I persuade everybody to not, even attempt to do any type of bad drug. But good drugs, we got to educate ourselves.
Well, drugs are good for a purpose. They serve a purpose. They have a purpose for health reasons, for balancing the body, bringing the homeostasis to the system. So they can be good.
My thoughts on drugs are that it's best to keep away from them. It can impact anyone who's using them in a way that is not expected.
My personal experience with drugs goes back to when I started my career in law enforcement, and you started to see what it actually does to families and what it does to people, kids, young people who have bright futures, get involved with the wrong crowd or start using drugs. They say that they're just smoking marijuana and that it's not a big deal, that marijuana is not a gateway drug to anything. But personal experience has shown me that extensive marijuana usage can lead to other things. And in my own life, it led to my son, who smoked a lot of marijuana and then ultimately decided that he would try other drugs. He was heavily addicted to methamphetamine for about 5 or 6 years, starting with, it might have even been the first time he tried methamphetamine. He was maybe a senior or had just graduated from high school. And the devastation of that is widespread. A lot of people that he was using drugs with are still using drugs or in jail. My son, thankfully, is clean and sober today, but it destroys relationships and families, and most importantly, it really hurts the person that's actually using drugs. Most drug addicts don't like who they are or what they've become after they've used drugs for an extensive period of time. They don't like that, but addiction is a real thing. So my advice to anybody is don't even try. Not even, drinking and smoking marijuana. Everybody makes light of the situation of like drinking. They say, well, it's legal and marijuana is legal. But I believe, and from what I have seen in a 21-year career in law enforcement and my own child, don't even do it at all.
I had a cousin who was he was an addict. It really affected his life. Lost his job, divorce, didn't get custody of his kids because he was a drug addict. It really made me sad for him because he was really close to my life and he had to go, what was it called? He had to go get fixed, I guess. It wasn't a good thing. It really affected him and I didn't like it.
So medically wise, obviously they have helped me because, you go to the doctor, you get prescription drugs, they help you and in those areas. So
I would say those have helped me. Outside drugs, I have not done drugs. That hasn't really affected me in any way, but it has affected me in seeing people that are out on the streets, that are walking around, that are, talking to themselves and, cussing and doing stuff that they're not in control of because a drug has caused them to kind of take their mind to a different place, So it does affect me in that way because it makes me sad because these are somebody's children. I don't know who got them started on it, and I know that some drugs are addicted and they can't stop doing them. So it affects me in that way because, as a mother, it hurts my heart because, they're somebody's children.
I've never done any drugs personally, but other people that have done them, it took a massive toll on them, and it really changed their lives for the worse.
My personal experiences with drugs, that would be more towards kids that I'm currently supervising. That's just common for them to use, and some of them have just gotten into more serious things again, and it kind of falls into the line of where now they're doing serious time and being arrested for serious charges for engaging in things like that.
My personal experience with drugs, I've never taken drugs, and wait, what was the other part?
How has it affected yourself or others?
Well, I mean, it's affected me because I have people who I know that have taken drugs, and it's affected our family because it puts us in a tough situation where we should help them or not, because we are trying to get them help, but they don't want help, and they think that they can get out of addiction by themselves, but they can't.
With my personal experiences, as far as like prescription drugs, I take the medication that my doctor prescribes, but then it's a personal choice as far as like what medications one is taking, and just to make sure that you advocate for yourself, and it's like, is this the best drug for me if my doctor is prescribing a specific drug, or are there other things that I can do that are more natural? So I kind of look at that as well. As far as illegal drugs, and when I was a teen, I really didn't get involved in the whole drug experience or anything. I wasn't really a follower, because somebody was doing something that I was gonna do it. I was really more, it's like I wanted to do my own thing, and I had specific goals, and the way that I was gonna carry out those goals if I really was focused. Plus my dad was a smoker in high school, so he smoked from, when I was very young, so I was already exposed to that secondhand smoke, and I was like, I don't want to experience that. So I just kind of always stayed away from it.
As I said earlier, unfortunately, a lot of my loved ones, I have 2 brothers that unfortunately started using drugs at a young age, and just recently, last year, my youngest brother, he ended up passing away from overdosing, using drugs.
My personal experience, my dad, he was on drugs, and it ruined my parents' marriage. We had many things, but my dad would sell them and leave us without, just so he could support his habit. Now that I am grown, I think drugs are bad. Stay away from them. I teach my kids that you could have it all, but if you get involved with drugs, it will take it all.
So like I said, socially, I've seen close family friends, close family members who have really changed their life for the worse. So.
In terms of drugs, the bad ones, there's a lot of people in my family that have taken bad drugs, and we see the consequences to that, in terms of, the life that they could have had for the life that they chose now, with the drugs. And so we can see the difference, how it affected them and our families. In terms of the good drugs, I've been having surgeries, left and right here. So I can understand that we need those good drugs to get us back on our feet as quick as possible. So again, going back to the first question, we got to educate ourselves so that we make better decisions when it comes to drugs.
Well, again, we take medications when we need them. Of course, they're abused now and then, and you'll see that a lot when you get to college. Can I say that? No, but just be careful, be smart, say no, and make good decisions. Because drugs are everywhere, they're all around, and they can do very bad things, and they can be very good for you.
So, my personal experience with drugs, as far as seeing family and friends use them, has been negative. Just seeing them change, seeing them go downhill, change their whole demeanor, has been totally negative in the way it's impacted their lives.